It's another edition of WRAL Triangle and 2. I'm Mark Bergin. He's Luis Fernandez. We're going to do a quick recap and look ahead of the Triangle teams with college football. But Luis, first we start. Bryce Young and the Panthers falling in week 1 to the Atlanta Falcons. Right off the bat, how do you think Bryce Young did in his debut for the Panthers on Sunday?
He looked like a rookie starting his first NFL game on the road. You know, like
you're polite.
I don't think there's really my expectations for the Panthers this season is to just continue to grow and get better as the year moves on. I don't think he had a whole lot of help. That Panthers offense did not look fantastic, but I mean, it's week 1, and I think it's if you are a Panthers fan, what you want to see out of Bryce Young is continued growth over the course of the year. Week 1 should not matter in the grand scheme of things. You just want to see continued growth. So you have week 1 now. Now you need week 2 to be better. That's how I view it. Just try and get some
picture. Here's where I look at this, Luis. I say this: none of the rookie quarterbacks won in their debut on Sunday. So Anthony Richardson loses, CJ Stroud loses. If you flipped Bryce Young and put him on this Atlanta Falcons team with Desmond Ridder, I think they'd be better off. And
100%.
To me, it was like the Falcons have a really nice 1-2 punch with Algier in the backfield and then Bijan Robinson, the rookie out of Texas. And that, to me, was really the big difference in the game on Sunday.
I have a lot of stocks in Tyler Algier, so I'm pretty happy with his performance. And the offense that Arthur Smith runs is very creative in its running game, especially. It plays to its personnel, which I think is important. But yeah, I mean, if you want to look at this from a grand scheme of things perspective, as long as Desmond Ridder is the starting quarterback for the Falcons, I think the Panthers are going to be just fine.
Okay.
He was not. He was. What was it? It was like early on. He was like 3 of 5 for like 0 yards and a touchdown. Like I don't okay. Like that. I very much. The NFC South right now just looks, it's exactly kind of how we expected it to look. Everyone's struggling a little bit, but it's always so hard. I never try to overreact with week 1 because it's week 1 and you see Super Bowl winning teams lose in week 1 all the time. You see, teams that look great in week 1 and they finish with a top 5 pick. It's week 1 of the NFL season. It is what it is.
Yeah. Desmond Ridder only had like 24 passing yards at halftime of this game.
This is the National Football League.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Yeah. Now, Bryce Young's longest completion, only 14 yards. Like, I'd like to see the Panthers move the ball down the field. Now, I understand that you got to protect the football, and your guy, Jesse Bates, getting 2 interceptions on Bryce Young in the opener, but stretch the field, like throw it up to Mingo. When in doubt, throw it up to Mingo, see what happens. Maybe you draw a pass interference penalty, but man, this is where going into the season, it was like the Panthers skill position players, there's more to be desired in trying to ensure that Young has success. I don't know if you're going to get that this season, but to me, moving the ball down the field, I say, your 14-yard is your longest completion if you're Young. He finishes the game 20 of 38 passing for 146 yards. We'll remember it as the opener in Atlanta, but other than his touchdown pass, we'll see him play better football at some point in the 2023 season.
Agreed. When you don't have the type of like skill position talent to really take the top off of a defense, it compresses everything. And that's what we saw happen with the Panthers offense. And when it's compressed like that, it makes it more difficult to play quarterback. So you just want to see growth from Bryce Young. You want to see the team continue to grow. And then you want to either hope that someone like Jonathan Mingo develops into that kind of talented outside threat, or, that's what next offseason is for. So not that there's still 16 games left.
Say week 2's must win for me, just given the statistical probability.
On.
No. You say this, and that's fine. It's the reality of your statistical probability. If you dig yourself an 0-2 hole to make the playoffs, the odds are against you. But Point blank, period, Luis.
That's fair. 0-2 is a tough hole, but it's also in the context of the NFC South. I think that's important.
Okay.
But also, like, then once again, that comes to the expectations. Like, if your expectations for the Carolina Panthers this year are to make the playoffs, then yes, I understand how next week is a must win. That is not what my expectations for the Carolina Panthers are. So it is what it is. Don't try not to lose. But I mean, what, Saints on Monday night, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not, the Saints didn't exactly look like, this juggernaut on offense.
Gotta have
So
it. You gotta
who
have it in
knows?
week 2. Gotta have it in week 2. Let's keep this rolling. UNC survives in double overtime against App State on Saturday. Lewis, I want to appeal to your Tar Heel fandom here. You're a UNC alum. You shake your head every week. To me, here's what this game was like. Back-to-back years of just bizarre, crazy finishes. Watching UNC and App State play, it's like smoking a pack of cigarettes and running a marathon at the same time.
It's not good for you.
Like, are you thrilled that UNC doesn't have App State on the schedule in 2024?
Well,
Because I get anxiety watching this. I don't even have a dog in the fight.
there are some games that you see on a schedule and you can circle and say, that's going to be something. Like there's, whether it be matchups or whether it just be history, those kind of games always exist. Mac Brown said after the game, he's, "Oh, I'm happy that we're done with, App State on the schedule." And he's joking in that.
I don't think he is.
Well, I mean, he's not, he said it in a joking manner. He's not joking, but he said it in a joking manner, if that makes sense.
Well, he even says it today during his news conference that he thought Sean Clark did more with his roster than that UNC did, that he did with UNC's.
And I agree. I think that it's, when you're in those kind of games, right? It's the way Mac Brown has kind of phrased it, is all the pressure is on UNC to win that game versus for App State to do anything. They get to kind of play free. They get to play loose. I think that's fair. I also think the good teams, though, do not feel that pressure because they understand that they are better. That's kind of how I view it. I mean, it's like the best, the teams that are always like in that kind of conversation of the college football playoff, the cream of the crop in college football, for better or worse, a lot of times they do not really play that many difficult teams in the non-conference schedule. App State's always someone who's going to bring it, especially against UNC. I mean, it's the same thing when like NC State and ECU played each other at the beginning of last year.
Mm-hmm.
You saw that day in the schedule. You're like, all right, well, that's going to be quite a challenge in the first week. And ECU almost pulls off the upset, just like App State almost pulled off the upset this week. So yeah, it's just whenever you have those kind of local rivalries, it makes the game it makes the game always a little more interesting. And I think too, like it's more fun. I love when you have those types of things in college athletics. I think from the perspective of like a college football fan, 100%, like let's just do like a round robin of just local teams playing each other in non-conference. That would be so much fun. If you are a UNC fan though, I think you're like, okay, time to move on.
You're thrilled. Deep down, if we gave Luis Fernandez truth serum, you were thrilled that UNC survives. And I want to say this. I hope this doesn't become a trend again of Drake May in the offense having to bail out the defense, because I wrote down in my notes, and this has been a theme going into this season for the Tar Heels, is will the defense prevent Drake May from being at that Heisman Trophy ceremony later on in the season and give up 34 points to App State? What defense shows up compared to what we saw in the opener against South Carolina? Then, this upcoming weekend against Minnesota, how do you respond to that? And it's a Minnesota team that comes into Chapel Hill also with a 2-0 record.
Well, I think part of this too, right, is I don't think the defense would prevent Drake May from getting to the Heisman. If anything, I think it's going to be the UNC play calling that does. Not in that it's bad.
All right. I agree to disagree Lewis.
Well, not that UNC play calling is bad by any means, but that there is not an emphasis on making sure Drake May gets numbers. That's just the simple, plain truth of it. Mac Brown was talking today in his Monday press conference, and he said, we're going to do whatever we can to win games. So if that means Omarion Hampton running for 232 yards or whatever it was, then that's what it is. If that means Drake May pulling the ball and running in for a touchdown versus trying to throw something, then it is what it is. I think part of it too is like UNC, it's kind of twofold. I thought the defense is definitely playing better this year than it did last year, but it's about playing at its best, right? So App State has like a 19-play drive at one point that could have been stopped so many times early on in the process. You can't let that extend, because that's exactly what App State wants to do. They want to play ball control. They want to keep the ball away from Drake May and essentially put that UNC offense in a position where if it's not executing every single drive, they're not being able to keep up. and they're just playing keep away, and you have to try and catch up to App State. That's essentially the trap that UNC fell into. And it's going to be interesting to see if they learn from that, because Minnesota is going to do something a lot similar, where they're going to play tough defense. They're going to play ball control, and UNC is going to have to take advantage of each possession. So the offense has to step up, and the defense has to step up as well.
Yeah, Hampton going past that 200-yard mark in the win over App State. A terrific performance by the running back. You get more than 100 yards from British Brooks in the opener against South Carolina, and we'll see again a good opponent in Minnesota, and always a very respectable team coming into Chapel Hill.
And Brown did say that they are hopeful that British Brooks will be back in the rotation for the game this Saturday.
You got to feed the hot hand, though. Got to feed the hot hand.
Absolutely.
To Raleigh, where NC State fell to Notre Dame. Your boy was in the building. It appeared at one point the scoreboard was zapped, but then it wasn't zapped. They did get the scoreboard back on and functioning. Spent $15 million. It looked very good. I'll say this weather delay, it was a little bit more than 90 minutes. We had to go into PNC Arena to take shelter. It really changed the vibe of the game going into the stadium. Everyone, it was packed, sellout, it was loud. And then it's like the first or second play from scrimmage, Notre Dame rips off a long touchdown run. And
it was the very first play back from the weather delay.
Yeah.
The very first play.
There was a sequence, though, Lewis, and I've got it charted out in our notes, where I thought there was the game hung in the balance and NC State just didn't take advantage.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair, because, I mean, it was at the very beginning of the fourth quarter. It's a one-possession game. NC State gets the ball back, and there's turnovers. But I was leaving.
Well, we can point to the turnovers, Lewis. Third quarter, right? So you go into this game, it's a 7-point spread. Notre Dame came as the number 9 team in the country. And NC State's got the ball in the Notre Dame 48. It's a 4th and 6. The offense goes on the field. It's like, oh my gosh, they're down 10. They're going to go for it. NC State takes a timeout, punts after the timeout. And it's like, if you were just going to punt the ball, take the false start penalty. So NC State's defense goes out, gets a 3-and-out, gets the ball back, and they drive down the field again. This time they get it to the Notre Dame 31, 4th and 2, and they decide we're going to kick a field goal to cut it 17-10, which is fine because you take a 2-score game to a 1-score game. But at that point, it's like, why not try to go for it? Because you knew Hartman and the offense were going to score again. They go down and do that. So then you're down 24-10. NC State roars back, gets a touchdown. They get a strip sack of Hartman, which was the loudest I heard the stadium all day, even during the sellout, even though all the fans didn't come back after the weather delay. They miss a field goal on the ensuing drive. I'm not sure you can go for it on 4th and 9 in the red zone, but to get the turnover and then not get any points to cut into Notre Dame's 7-point deficit. Right then and there to say, okay, on 4th and 6 at midfield down 10, let's go for it. Let's draw up our best play. And if we miss, we miss. Or on the drive before where they settle for a field goal deep in Notre Dame possession, it's 4th and 2. And you say, no, we're going to put our field goal unit on. Like, if you're going to knock out the heavyweight, Lewis, you got to throw some haymakers. And it didn't happen on Saturday. I know that because I was in the building. You could feel it in the stadium.
Well, and that's so I think too often it should not be about playing not to lose. It needs to be playing to win. And I think what often happens is we don't look at possessions in a football game as important as they are. Especially when you have like an offense that you were going up against like Notre Dame, they're going to possess the ball. They're going to go down. They're going to score points. So it's about making timely stops and scoring points on your own end as well. And so you have to look at each possession as incredibly important and pivotal and trying to get as many points as you can out of it. Yeah, I agree. I'm always, if you are deep in a team's territory, especially in college football, if it is a 4th and manageable, in my mind, you at least need to think about going for it. So, I would like to see NC State's offense be more aggressive. I thought that was a little bit of what we were going to get with the new look, kind of, Brennan Armstrong, Robert and I offense. We're still going to need some more time to see. But, I mean, obviously, now that you lose Notre Dame, it kind of sets up the rest of the schedule in a totally different way. The good news for NC State is they have VMI, who should not pose a problem for them on Saturday.
You would think so, and it's tough because Notre Dame, you could just tell we're just bigger. I mean, they have some big dudes, and they limited NC State to 84 yards rushing in this one.
Yeah.
on 30 carries.
Yeah.
And then Armstrong, 22 of 47. I mean, he's trying to make plays, but it wasn't enough. You'll get to regroup this week against VMI, but there was an opportunity in that game. And maybe it's a little bit different if the weather delay doesn't happen and you get that raucous home crowd to rally your team too. The one thing I will say about NC State, the way they get their sidelines hyped, they always say the
That is
sideline
fun. Yeah.
tells the story. That's contagious, and I honestly think every program should take notes on that and it's a lot of the players that that aren't going to get into the game, but they're going nuts cheering their teammates on. That's very contagious in
Yeah.
terms of the energy that brings to the players that are on the field.
Well, and that's what we saw with the first few possessions of that game, right? That defense and the defensive line in particular were just controlling the line of scrimmage. They were feeding off that energy. I don't know. I feel like it's kind of the same old that we're seeing with State. And so, it is not the end of their season by any means losing Notre Dame, but now is the time where you need to take these next few weeks to really get more in tune offensively and then try and run through the ACC or do the best you can in the ACC.
Two other things I noticed too, Lewis, guys with NFL futures. Joe Alt, the left tackle for Notre Dame, is going to be a first-round pick in this year's draft. He just completed his assignment every single play. There was nothing that was like, whoa, but massive, massive human. And in a one-on-one scenario, he just never lost. And then Benjamin Morrison, who had one interception, he had a personal foul, which led to an NC State score, several penalties on the Irish, but he had an interception, very nearly had two in this game. What I noticed with him, and he was coming off a freshman year where he had 6 interceptions, also as an NFL future, his positioning was as good as any defensive back I've seen at a college level, Lewis. So just 2 players I noticed where it's just like, Alt in the 2024 class and then Morrison further down the line. I want to make note of their contributions of players that we got to see in our backyard in Raleigh here this past weekend, Lewis.
I like it. You want to move on to Duke?
Yes. Lastly, Duke is going to try to continue its winning ways this weekend against Northwestern, coming off a win against Lafayette. Lewis, we live in a world where Duke is ranked and NC State is not. Like, it's crazy.
Well, I mean, Mike Elko has done a really good job with that program, and they've continued to be consistent. They're not going to mess around. What's going on with Duke. And I don't think this is Clemson. So for those who were not paying attention, Clemson was tied with Charleston Southern at the end of the first quarter, 14-14, but then pulled away with it.
Okay.
So I think Clemson's still figuring itself out, but that's still an incredibly impressive win for Duke, both as a team and as a program. And so I think Blue Devils are really set up well for the rest of the season. They still have a lot of very challenging games. Florida State, I believe, as well. They play some games on the road, some ACC matchups on the road that are going to be difficult at UNC. So, Duke's whole thing was their schedule is really hard this year, but they have been answering the tests that they've been facing so far. They look complete, and you just got to give credit where credit is due. And the Blue Devils are in a great position that no one thought that they were going to have the success that they had last year. And I think no one also thought that they were going to be able to be sitting here after 2 weeks of college football at 2-0. Everyone was worried about Lafayette. I don't know what maybe Clemson. Who's worried about Clemson?
Amazing.
But now the Blue Devils are going to be in a good spot to. I think they should be able to handle Northwestern without question.
Yeah, Northwestern this weekend in Durham, and then you go and play Connecticut, and you play Notre Dame. So 2 teams NC State has already played. What can you gather from the tape of those games and how Duke plays those games compared to how NC State plays those games is going to make for some interesting conversations here on WRAL Triangle 2 in the coming weeks, Lewis. So
can you imagine a world where both Duke and Notre Dame are undefeated going into that matchup?
Hey,
it feels pretty likely. Who does Notre Dame play between now and then?
Let me take a look, but that game will be in Durham. Bring College Game Day to Durham. I know it's not hoop season, but we'd love to see it here in the Triangle, Lewis.
Here,
let me take a look.
Notre Dame. They have to play Ohio State. Notre Dame does before then, so who knows? Who knows what that's going to look like?
But they might get College Game Day back-to-back weeks at Notre Dame football games, Lewis.
That's interesting.
I in all seriousness, though, too, how Riley Leonard shakes out in the quarterback race, and I see his name being mentioned among the top quarterback prospects in the 2024 class too.
Oh, yeah.
Can they keep that rolling? Again, yet another test this upcoming weekend in what's been a very, very impressive start for the Blue Devils, regardless of how good or bad Clemson is, which we really don't know to this point. Man, it's been such a fun season to start though, Lewis. And so we'll do it all over again next weekend too. And I cannot wait. I was very excited to talk to you about all of these games today, Lewis.
Yeah, it's been a really fun college football season so far. Still got a lot to go. And I think my favorite thing is just it's hard to kind of look at the college football landscape and be like, yep, that's the team. Like even Georgia doesn't really seem like Georgia. Alabama losing to Texas. Ohio State has not looked very dominant. USC has looked good, but USC also hasn't really played anyone. I feel like there is a lot of opportunity for a lot of different teams this year, and I'm just excited to see how it continues to shake out, especially as we get deeper and deeper into conference play.
He's Luis Fernandez. I'm Mark Bergin. This has been another edition of WRAL Triangle and 2. Subscribe on the 99.9 The Fan YouTube page. Give us a 5-star review, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'll go ahead and sign off here for the both of us. For Luis Fernandez, I'm Mark Bergin. Thank you for watching another edition of WRAL Triangle and 2. We'll see you next time. Take care. So long.